All right, is this working? Somebody let me know if this is working, because I really do not know. I'm going to wait for chat. Hello, everybody, if you guys are there. Currently seeing nothing. Currently seeing nothing. That's myself. Still waiting on chat. Somebody confirm if I'm here. Okay. What is happening? Anybody here? Looking for any sign of life. Oh, sweet. Okay, there we go. Finally got some chats. Hello, guys. How you guys doing? Maybe it took a bit. I don't really know. If you can hear me, say Siona. I want to see how quickly the response is on this. It doesn't feel like it's totally live. Maybe it has like a 20-second delay. Oh, that was pretty good. Okay. All right. Hey, guys. How's it going? It is good to see you all again. We've got like 10 people watching right now. I think most likely most people will be tuning in after, well after I already have finished doing all this. I wanted to come on here because I started recording a cast rationale, and I kind of ultimately felt like, number one, I didn't really feel like editing it down. I've done a lot of editing recently. And number two, I had a lot to say, but I wasn't sure exactly where I wanted to go with it. So that's why I really wanted to open it up to you guys, let you all be a part of me discussing the casting. Really, this is just, it's something that people asked me about for a while. Why did you cast this person? Why didn't you cast this person? Why is this person not on the season? So I'm here to answer all those questions. That's what I know you guys, a lot of you want to hear. I still plan on doing a separate video. I'll probably do just a regular video of that, of the format for the first day, as well as kind of a deeper dive into the partner twist. But if you guys have questions about anything beyond casting tonight, I will definitely try to answer some of those. That can be questions from past seasons I never got around to, questions from why it took me so long in the off season to put this frickin' together. It's been years, I know. Feel free to ask me whatever you want. I'm an open book about most things besides like spoilers, obviously. I'm just gonna say a couple things real quick, and then I'll launch into kind of my general process for the casting, and then we can dive into specific people based on what you guys want to hear. So the only things I think I was going to say, and I forgot now, I don't have my list of things I want to say, but if you haven't voted in the tribal rankings, if you guys are here, you're probably big fans of Survivor Maryland, I would hope. I hope you guys are excited about the season. I just finished a draft of the premiere. I'm going to screen it tonight with one other person and see if it looks good. So I'm pretty happy about it. I think you guys will definitely enjoy it. And that was one announcement. Still on track for the premiere. Everything looks good. The second announcement was that if you haven't voted in the tribal ranking poll, definitely go vote in that. Go find the link that I posted a few weeks ago. Still want to kind of get the results on that from a few more people, and then I will either compile that preseason or just a little bit into the season, and we can run with that. And beyond that, I also submitted, or I posted last week a call for people to be part of the last preseason video. So what I've done, I can tell you guys a little bit about that. Probably about a week or a little bit more before the season starts, I've gotten a roundtable panel of Survivor Maryland experts. And I know that's not really, people are not as expert, don't have as much expertise in Survivor Maryland as they would about the real show. It hasn't been around for as long. I understand it's a fan-made series. But some people who are maybe notable in the community, in the Survivor community, who have watched Survivor Maryland, who have showed interest in it. And I also wanted to get a big-time fan, to be part of that also. So I have a really fun group of 4 people. I'm pretty much, I'm still working around a couple people with that, but I'm working with the people who have already messaged me. If you missed that, I'm really sorry. Feel free to message me and reach out about other opportunities. I do want to get other fans involved in talking about the seasons and talking about Survivor Maryland and bring you guys onto the channel whenever I can. So if you're interested in being part of any of that video content or talking about Survivor Maryland in a video form, let me know and I can try to make that happen, even if not in a couple weeks at some point. So reach out to me personally. You can do it after this. All right. This is why I do need to edit myself down, because I kind of ramble and go on a lot of tangents. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into a general process of how I put it up for you guys for questions, and also get into individual people why I did want them on the season. So does that sound good to everybody? Any questions or comments before I get started off? See a lot of familiar names. Very excited to see all of you. You guys are some of my favorite people. I agree the Mashable article was dope. Thanks, Jack. A lot of good shout outs to a lot of people in there. All right, well, feel free to post some questions and I'll jump in when I can. But let me just go into the general casting process. And for you guys who are either planning your own seasons or thinking about planning a Survivor game or really any competition in the future, maybe this will be helpful for you, or maybe you just are interested in hearing it for this season. So 3 years ago, probably about 3 years ago, right around this time, 2015, right towards the end of Guts and Glory, I sent out a message to every Survivor Maryland player who had ever played, but who had not or was not graduating that semester. And I told them that I was considering having an all-star season. It had been something we talked about, but I didn't really ever formalize it because I didn't want people to play for their all-star season. I wanted them to give their all to that first season. So even during Guts and Glory, we really didn't talk about it. Noah, I will get to your question in a little bit. So I know I've ignored you that before, so I'll get to that. So I sent out a call to every player who had ever played. I wanted to open it up to everyone, and my general process for this was for it to be as self-selecting as possible. That was by design. I wanted people who were interested in playing a second time. You know, there are some people who you obviously want to have in the cast who are stars, who are great players or great characters, and that's a given. But I also really wanted to make this cast 20 people, really any number, 16 to 20 people who cared about playing and really wanted to be there. So I asked them to fill out a brief interest survey, just indicating whether they were going to apply or play at all. Then I gave them another month to fill out an application going more in depth on their reasons for playing again and what their mindsets were going into All-Stars. I just kind of compiled those today. I'm going to post some excerpts from the applications they submitted. They're kind of like cast interviews. So I'm going to post those probably next Monday, keep some Monday releases. So on Monday, I'll post some excerpts from people looking into what their mindset was going through the season. I think you guys will really like those. We'll talk a lot of shit about each other. So that should be pretty fun to see as it goes. And some things turned out to be accurate. Some things turned out to be totally not accurate. But you guys will have to figure that out for yourselves. So anyway, so I had them all do an application. After they filled out their application, I then did phone interviews with every single person who applied. I will say that when I say every single person, it was probably only about 28 to 30 people who ended up, about 30 people who ended up applying to begin with. A couple more people that I reached out to push them to apply. And I did a phone interview with everybody because I really wanted to get a sense of how badly they wanted to play. And one of the questions I asked them was, hey, if I don't cast you, are you going to be okay with that? And most people said, no, I'm going to be really upset. And that was a great sign for me for this season. And it's a great sign for why I was willing to do this again, because we had people who wanted to play. All of them, every single player I reached out to, even Queen Carla. And I'll get to Zandria in a bit, but Zandria is not on this season. So sad. But yeah, Carla had a chance. Carla did not ask to come back. So I'll get to specifics in a bit. But that drive to play is something I was looking for. It was my top criteria. And that's something that shows up throughout the season. And I think it's why the season was so good. As far as winners, so you guys will probably know by now, spoilers if you don't, nobody in the cast won before. The 4 winners from the previous seasons did not play in All-Stars. As far as the discussions went, a couple of them were initially interested, but ultimately season 1's winner graduated. Season 2's winner was heading up a major organization on campus, like a really big organization, and was pretty satisfied with their win. Season 4's winner was studying abroad, so not really much we could do about that, unfortunately. I think that person would have played again. And season 3's winner was interested, but ultimately didn't feel super strongly about playing again. And it was only one person. I didn't really push them because I didn't really only want to have one winner in the season, because I was fine with having a second chance as sort of cast. So the next question I've been asked and kind of asked myself is, why did I not call it second chances? The answer is that it really could be second chances. Like, there's no reason why it's not. They all have their second chance storyline. They're not winners, whatever. But I honestly stuck with All Stars because one, I thought it was the last season of Survivor Maryland. I was like, you know what? We're gonna call it the All Star season. Who cares? It's the last one. I also didn't want to reveal beforehand whether the winners were playing or not. And I stuck with it because I think that there's a distinction between a second chance season or a second chances group of people and an all-stars group of people. If you're trying to be the all-star, the ultimate all-star, you're playing to be the best and to win. And if you're playing for a second chance, there's a little bit more about fixing what you did wrong and trying to improve and do better. And I mean, the players talk about that all the time during the game. You'll see the same kind of themes from second chances, but they still want to be the best and be the ultimate all-star. So I'm ultimately fine with how it played out, and I don't think it's honestly a big deal either way. But those players are all hungry, and if you want to think of it as a second chance this season, feel free. I don't care. Steve, have I finished doing the entire season now is when I gave us the premiere date. So I've finished 14 episodes. There's going to be 16 total. There's some doubles mixed in there. And so I haven't finished the entire season. The last 2 episodes are like kind of laid out, but not totally. But 14 laid out is pretty good. I'm just kind of going and doing the music for those. So the premiere is kind of done. And I'm going to keep going through those, and I should be ahead of pace, at least for now. There may be a time when I have to take 1 week off in the middle of the summer if something comes up, or if I need a little bit more time to finish the last episode of the finale or whatever. I'm not planning on that. I'm planning on being all ready to go, and I've never even been remotely close to this far along. So don't worry about that. We should be pretty good to go. But it is a lot of work. Some other questions I see. Isn't second chances just a different kind of all-stars? Yeah, totally. I mean, second chances, it's really not a big deal. I think the naming does matter a bit. Like, even if you look at how a jury would look at it or how players would perceive it, if you call it second chances, it might be more about improvement than about being the best. And I like that idea of being the best and being the winner rather than being the most improved. Yeah, it's not the final season. For those of you who don't know, we've had 5 seasons since then. We're running season 10 right now. It's about halfway through. So there's a lot of Survivor Maryland coming down the pipeline in the future whenever we get around to it. Survivor Pacific Northwest. Shout out to Survivor Pacific Northwest. Love your shows. I have caught up on the last season, so I'm excited for Winter Wars. Yeah, having people who actually want to play is really important. I honestly, and this is my advice that I would give to Noah and anyone who asks about running a season, you absolutely have to have people who want to play. It makes it so much better. There's just no way to have a good season without that drive and that desire. And I think that's why, and this isn't meant to be a boast, but I think that one of the strengths of Survivor Maryland is that these players have played so hard over such a long period of time. So that's what I was looking for overall in All-Stars. Where is Falou K? All right, well, that's a good transition, since I see some Falou K comments, into getting into who's not there, who are the obvious snubs. So let's start with La Plata Island, who I know you guys have been dying to hear about because you've watched the whole season, and obviously you're so crazy about La Plata Island. So the only people who were left who had not graduated were Shubal, who's in the season, and Alan. And you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Alan's storyline had played out. I think that we're good to go on that front. If you guys wanted to see Alan again, I'm sincerely sorry, and you'll just have to wait for next time. Yes, justice for Allie, justice for Alan, Dom. You're totally right. Nicola was the only one notable that you guys probably know about. She had already graduated. I would have loved to have her back. I think she's a fun personality and player. Yeah, I'm good on Alan too. Maryland Outback. So I kind of tiered this when I was looking at it in my locks, and then my bubbles, and then other people who were out. So you got your locks from that season, some real stars. Chris Lecomte was going to be in no matter what. From his gameplay, character standpoint, had to be in there. And obviously really wanted to play. Siona knew she was a huge character and kind of like an internet star for a bit. So she was obviously going to be back and she wanted to play. And she wanted to play plenty fine and kind of live that legacy out. So Siona was definitely a lock. Nicole Senti, definitely one of the most controversial players in the season across all of Survivor Maryland. But she obviously had to be in. I think she's one of the stars of the season 2, one of the most interesting players, played a really interesting game, almost won. So she had to be in. Chris Thomas, I think from a personality standpoint, he's a lock. A lot of people really liked him by the end. He kind of went from this villain to a bit of an underdog hero. Thought that was interesting. And I would even say Rebecca, to me, was close to a lock. If I had, everyone who had played, people like Katie, people like, I can't even think of a few, like Falou K, a few other people in the cast, maybe Rebecca gets bumped in a crazy scenario. But Rebecca had a lot of potential, I thought. I think she got really screwed at the beginning of the game. So I viewed her as someone who was deserving of a second chance. The bubbles for that season, we had Ryan, someone who really begged me to play again from the second he got out. And I was excited to give him that shot. And then Ashley, who was not initially in the cast, but I'll kind of get into that later. So the people who were out, let's just focus on those. Phil get asked about a lot. Phil actually unintentionally kind of declined. Like, he would have probably been in the season, but he wasn't really giving me a firm answer. And I sent him a text being like, hey, if you're not in, then I'm just going to move on. And he was like, all right, dude. And I think he meant to say that he was going to be in, but he actually, to me, I was like, well, screw that. So when the season was about to start, he was like, wait, am I in? And I was like, no. So fortunately, Phil's not in. I think it's okay. I think Phil's a really good player, but I think we kind of seen his storyline play out. I don't know if there was a lot of upside there, so that didn't work. Chandler declined. He never applied in the first place. He could have been in if he was interested. He was a big personality and player in that season, but he just got really busy after Survivor and kind of gave up on that. Alex Burkow, Alex from that season, he chose to be on crew. I was potentially going to give him a spot because he was a really, really loyal crew member for, I was going to say servant, but that's not right. He was a really loyal crew member for a couple years. He chose to be on crew, which was a huge help to me. Holly, who got out third, she signed up and then so she was initially in the cast and she then dropped out in the summer. And that's where Ashley actually got in. She wasn't in initially. Ashley never responded to me right away, but she took the chance. I sent out another call after Holly dropped and Ashley jumped on it. So I was excited to have Ashley. She's a big personality. And I thought Holly was a fun character too. Holly and Marissa were very similar to me. Marissa from Terrible Trials, Holly from Outback, but neither of them ended up being able to play. Steve, he declined. Nicole Locke declined to play. I reached out to her again after Holly. I reached out to her and Ashley after Holly dropped, but Nicole declined. Zandria initially indicated some interest, but ultimately didn't follow up, which was probably for the best because you guys don't understand how how difficult it was to work with Zandria. You can ask me questions about that later if you want. Let's move on to Terrapin Trials. So I'll just get right off the top. Falou K. Yes, egg Zandria, of course. Lauren did not reach out to me, and I did not push Lauren. She was fine, but she never seemed that interested in the first season. I don't know. Falou K. So Falou K, she actually submitted an application. When I was reading through them again today, I had forgotten about that. She submitted an application to be on the season, talking about, a couple things, how she matured, about her character. She kind of felt like she was a caricature of herself online. But she was interested in being there, and she was in for a bit. We had been discussing it a lot. Then next thing I knew, she was out. And, I definitely talked to her. I wanted to have her part of the season. She's one of the most legendary people in Survivor Maryland. We all know that. But she felt like she had too much baggage. I wasn't going to push her on that. And I also felt like, starting the game, Falou K obviously takes so much of the air away from everybody else. She's such a huge character. And I think that it's okay that we can, we'll be sad. We'll miss Falou K definitely. But she won't be forgotten. She gets mentioned in the first 5 minutes. Everybody, it's like, where's Falou K? Is she going to be there? And also, I think that between Victoria getting a fresh start without that and all the other players getting a fresh chance to open up and take the lead, that really made it for an interesting tribe. So it would have been fun with her. I think it's also fun without her. I wouldn't freak out about it. But I understand why it's upsetting. Whether I should have kicked Victoria out of the cast if Falou K would not have played, Victoria actually has held up as more popular in the polls I've had since the season. Very controversial. I don't want to start that whole debate here. You guys can have it in the comment section, but Victoria is extremely popular too. They both were immensely liked players. They were good players, really good players, and interesting personalities. I wish both of them would heal and just be fine, but that is the way it was. So that's Falou K's situation. I hope that explains a little bit. We definitely talked and tried, but it didn't work out. In terms of other people, the locks for Terrapin Trials. So as I said, Victoria was a lock. Sabrina, I know Sabrina doesn't have a ton of fans, but there's some passionate fans for Sabrina. I really wanted Sabrina back. She was not going to play right away. She was not interested. She was really busy. She had 20 credits of engineering, which is not easy. But Sabrina is very underrated smart. She's a big personality that runs people the wrong way, but also people really like her when they get to know her. And she's strategic. She was strategic from the second she started the game, even though she was kind of this ditzy blonde too on the outside. She was definitely strategic, and I really pushed her to play. And she was the kind of thing where I wouldn't push someone to play if they didn't want to, but I think she was kind of afraid to play again. She was a little embarrassed, and she felt like she was busy. But she's the kind of person that when she commits to something, she goes all in. So I was so excited to get Sabrina back, and once the game started, she was so ready to go, as all these players were. And then Holly, also someone that I think had a ton of potential. We didn't get to do a lot of confessionals with her back in her season, so I don't think she really showed everything to everyone, but someone who really was excited to be there, always asked me to play again, loved Survivor, super fan of the show, and someone I also was definitely going to have back. And some people don't like Eric, but I think Eric was a pretty big character this season. He's very strategic, and I was pretty happy to have him in the cast. Also, it helps balance out the level of guys from the seasons. The bubbles were Sierra and Alex G, two of the ones who could have been very easily bumped if a couple people were here for the season. Like if someone like Renee was here, maybe Alex G goes out. If Zach had wanted to play, Zach 100% would have been in. He was actually abroad this semester when I did the call for applications, and he came to me the day before All-Stars started and said, hey, can I play? Like, Austin, let me play. And I was like, it's the day before. Like, I can't do that yet. I don't know how serious he was. Part of me wanted to be like, let's take that producer thing and just, screw over Alex, put in Zach. But Alex wanted to be there really badly. He wrote essays to me about why he felt like he deserved a second chance, what he had learned, all the freaking mistakes he made last time. So very self-critical. And, if someone wants that, I'm going to give them the second chance. Zach didn't express as much interest. So I think it worked out fine. I would like to have Zach, but I think, the season isn't going to fail because of that. Otherwise, Maria, she was interested initially, but then she declined, didn't feel like she was going to be totally passionate about it. Marissa is a journalist, was very busy that semester, declined. I would have loved to have her too. Harry graduated, but I probably wouldn't have had him on anyways. He was kind of a pain in the ass production-wise. Terry was interested, but he declined. And Kane, no, I'm just kidding. I wasn't going to cast Kane. Okay. Any questions about Terrapin Trials? Oh, Katie Judd. Katie Judd didn't reach out to me, so I didn't reach out to her. But she was a fun character. Her goldfish, R.I.P. Maria was the one who got in the fights with Sabrina. So Maria and Sabrina actually became friends after the season. But yeah, we do love them anyway. The great quote. Guts and Glory. So like I said, people who are out. Nicola graduated. Katie was studying abroad. Sherry, popular person, would have loved to have her for this kind of second chances theme. She was studying abroad. Renee was studying abroad. Molly declined to play. I think the end of the season was pretty hard for her, and this was the semester after. And probably the biggest decision I think I had in casting when it all kind of boiled down after I talked to everyone was Brian versus Brandon. You have to remember the time that it was. I was doing this during Guts and Glory. Nothing had aired. I knew Brian was going to be a fun character. I did not expect Brandon to receive the level of hate that he got. I definitely know that he can rub some people the wrong way. I thought that people would also find him pretty entertaining as someone either to root against because he wasn't in the more likable alliance or just someone to kind of bounce off people. But I was not prepared for the level of disdain that Brandon got over time. So if I had known that, I might have cast Brian over Brandon. But I also, I think that Brandon is someone who was different from everybody else on the tribe. He's just a very open personality, a very engaging personality. Brian is pretty shy. Brian is very like antisocial, but in an outgoing way. And I think Brian, like if I had to predict, I think Brian would have been the first boot 100%. Like I just think he wouldn't have fit in. People would have thought he was strategic and scheming, and he would have just been gone. He didn't fit in with kind of the level of sociability you needed to have in All-Stars. And I think that someone like Schubel, who you guys don't know much about, Schubel to me was the Brian who had more game. Like he was, kind of the same level of schemingness, being a little bit villainous also and witty, but more socially aware and adept. And so I didn't feel like I had to have Brian. I felt like Brandon brought something different to the table that I wanted to have. And so that's why I went with that. If you guys are upset with me for that, I'm sorry. Brian would have been really fun to have again. But the other thing was that when I talked to him, he was like, yeah, I'm interested in playing. And I just didn't know how he was trolling me. If I had a visual aid, I would give it to you. Brian was like the tall, lanky guy from Guts and Glory who Molly didn't play the idol for. I don't know. Look it up. So that's what I have with most of the rationale of people. I know I've talked kind of my tail off really fast. I hope that was interesting at all for you guys. It's already been 25 minutes. Jesus Christ. So let's get into questions. Shoot me questions. Yeah, Jack runs an amazing Survive Maryland wiki. If you need reminders of the players, go search that up, survivemaryland.wikia.com, something like that. Shout out to him for that. He does an amazing job. And there's a lot of information, episode titles, everything on those pages. So Guts and Glory, I didn't mention the locks. The locks for me were Evan, played an amazing game for the pre-merge especially, and was a huge character of the season. Alex Pascal became, kind of one of the ultimate, maybe the central character of the season, and definitely someone who you have to have in the cast 100%. And Shannon, also one of the stars of the girls across seasons, the Army vet, huge personality, very interesting player. I think she had more potential as a player strategically than she showed in Guts and Glory. And so I was happy to have all those. The bubbles were Micah, Brandon, and Michelle. I already talked about Brandon. Michelle is someone who I think had potential that got cut short. I think she's just like a low-key funny person. I think we saw a little bit of it in the season, but we just didn't see her get to understand the game yet and shine. She got out at her first tribal, and she really begged me to have a second chance. And so that passion, again, that's what really meant a lot to me. And Micah, I think, showed a lot towards the end of the season as a personality. I think he learned a lot about the game, and I felt like he was someone who could do really well in the season, making a lot of connections and being very well liked by everybody. So, questions. Post all your questions now. Let's go back to those for a bit and get me to stop just monologuing. So, okay. So, was I afraid it was unfair to cast all three of the Soca Trio together? No. The reason being, I wouldn't put all of them on the same tribe together. That was for sure. And I'll go into this in the next video, but we can talk a little bit about it now. Part of the reason I split up the seasons the way I did, or the cast into guys versus girls, is because it did a really good job of splitting up all the pre-existing alliances between the number of people from each season, the people who were aligned or friends in real life. So the Soca Trio, I mean, obviously they were really tight-knit. But, after the season, things started to come out like, hey, Evan was willing to turn on Shannon later on. Shannon wasn't sure how much she trusted Evan late in the game. And so I think that, number one, going in All-Stars, I would be surprised. I was surprised. Let me phrase this. I really like this is in their bios that I'll post on Monday. They were a little bit wary of each other, and so that was something that made me less concerned about it. But they're obviously really tight alliances. They're really tight alliances from all the seasons. But as long as they weren't on the same tribe initially, I wasn't worried about it. There are connections and friends all over the seasons that can play into this. Did I do anything to prevent pre-gaming? I did not. I didn't reveal the cast, obviously. I told people to keep it secret. I knew pre-gaming was going to happen. It's a tight campus. There weren't that many players who had played previously. Everybody had a little bit of an idea, but nobody pieced together the whole cast. And to be honest, everything I heard about pre-game, it pretty much dissolved on day one. They had no idea what the tribes were going to be. Pretty much everybody thought it was going to be heroes versus villains, and obviously I changed that up on them. So I didn't prevent it. I didn't feel the need to prevent it, and I don't think it's an issue at all. Going into the game, the pre-gaming, not something to be worried about. How about Matt from season 4? So Matt, I think right after Guts and Glory was like, Austin, I'm kind of interested in playing All-Stars, but I'm not really sure if I'll be able to, so I'll have to let you know. And in my head, I was like, Matt, you aren't at the top of my list at all. I didn't think he was a super interesting player. I thought he had potential and was smart, but he just never acted on that. He really just downplayed himself so much and didn't give himself a chance. There's actually a quote from Micah in the bios that you'll read on Monday. Micah said, I want to do the things that Matt said he was doing, but didn't actually do. I think that's smart. Like being friendly, being nice, and being strategic, but not super over the top is good. But Matt just did nothing for a lot of the game. I think that was proved when he didn't save Sherry. He had the chance to take a risk, and he really just never did. Are there any huge twists this season without spoiling? The partner twist I've already talked about, and I'll talk more about in the future, but that is a big twist. It affects the gameplay in a lot of ways. I think it's going to be really compelling for you guys to watch. And that is a big twist in a sense. I don't think anything's really ever been done like it in a show that I've seen. There are a couple other twists thrown in the season, some smaller, some a little bit bigger. I didn't want to have it super twist heavy. I kept it kind of, the first few episodes, there's not even any idols that are in play. I tried to keep it really classic early on, let those relationships and those strategies really play out early. But there will be some twists. I won't say anything more than that. Is Shannon in? Yeah, Shannon's in the cast, 100%. Total lock. Molly should have gotten second place. I've heard that a lot. I think Molly played a really solid game. I think I mentioned Molly declined. How did I come up with let's start it from up higher. I asked on Twitter what said could talk about today. What's the editing status and likes of season 6 and 7? Season 6 is in the editing process. I know it's a lot of work, and the host has just kept running new seasons, so I don't know exactly where it is. I'm not doing it myself. I've done enough editing. I think it should be ready to go pretty soon after All Stars, so we'll at least get something pretty soon after that. Dom, you really are on the Allen train today. Hope you're having fun. It's a small train, more of like a caboose. As many twists as game changers. I didn't. When I filmed this, I was filming this during Second Chances, Cambodia, the real show, and we really weren't in the era of advantages yet. So I didn't mix in a lot of those, off advantages, vote steals. Those had just started kind of coming into the fold, and I don't know. I didn't want to go crazy with that. I lost my train of thought. How did I come up with the pairs idea? So I was going to touch on this next week in the video, but maybe I'll just try to get as much in now as I can. So I initially was going to do the season as heroes versus villains. I planned on that. I started working out the tribes. I was talking with Steve from season 2 and with Alex, who were on the crew. I was like, let's figure out this heroes versus villains, who would fit. It was a lot of pegging people into certain places where they may or may not have fit. Also trying to balance up the alliances. It just wasn't totally clicking for me. And I remember just pacing around by myself in my basement. And I thought to myself, boys versus girls would be a really good way to split the tribes. And 20 seconds later, I thought, what if they have a secret partner on the other side? So I don't know. It was like literally an epiphany. I don't understand how I came up with it. It was basically, when I thought about it, it was a way to make sure that we had this boys versus girls dynamic, men versus women. That has always been a present thing in Survivor Maryland seasons and on CBS Survivor too. And it was something that I just kind of thought of. And I wanted to make sure that there was this dynamic of guys versus girls, but also there was not a belonging of one side one way or the other. I didn't want the whole season to be defined by that. So the secret partner twist was a way to make sure that those tribes interact and those tribes mix. And it takes advantage of the Survivor Maryland format, which is that you can talk to anyone from either tribe. You're on the campus. You can meet with anyone you want. And I've always liked that, and I haven't wanted to stop that. And I decided to exploit that to make a really interesting twist. So you guys will see how that pays off, and I think it'll be really fun. You will know who's paired with who on the first day. The first day, you'll see everybody pick. So only the girls find out the info right away. It was just a little kind of twist I spun on it. I wanted an organic way for people to find out. I didn't want to just like text them their partner. So the girls pick the name. They have it. It's up to them whether they tell the guys or not. There's a lot of rewards for the twist, so probably makes sense to tell the guy if you want some rounds of immunity, but everyone takes a different spin on the partner twist, and there's a lot of different strategies for it. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, other questions. I just wanted to mention I love how Nicole Senti is now listed as the side major in the preview. Glad you caught that. I'm leaving that like that for the season. I think it's a fun build on her storyline, and I don't think her major it was like something business. It wasn't anything that exciting. So she was undecided major for the entire Maryland Outback season, which kind of fit her being undecided about the game the whole time, for those of you who were not aware. If I pay $100, would you give me unedited footage of Terrapin Trials, Final Tribal, when Falou K told you to turn off the camera? Timster, come on. I know you're a big Falou K fan, but Falou K, not necessarily me. Falou K would not want you to see that. So I will not take $100 bribes to do that. But good question. Dom, stop trying to make Allen happen. Dom, Allen versus Chelsea. Who you got? Tell me that in the comments. Who do you think was the most excited when they got cast? That's a tough question. I mean, I'm telling you, all 20 players were really stoked. Maybe some a little bit more than others. Like I think Alex, I will say I initially said no to Alex Gennaro. I was holding a spot for somebody else, and I said no to him, and he was crushed. Like he was really crushed. And then immediately the guy said he didn't want to do it, so I gave it to Alex, and he was elated. So that's someone who definitely wasn't in lock to make the season, but was so pumped to play. I mean, Ryan was begging me forever. Chris Lecomte was probably going to just like fall over and die if he didn't get to play again. So there was that. I hope that answers your question a little bit. Any future planning on the Exile Island knockoff Ghost Island? The problem is that the seasons are just too far behind. So the players like players in season 10 are referencing Guts and Glory and Terrapin Trials players, which is kind of a problem, a disconnect in like the history surrounding Maryland, which is unfortunate. Otherwise, that would be kind of fun, but I don't know. We'll have to see if there are enough mistakes made. If you guys have interesting Ghost Island, Survivor Maryland ideas, I guess like Phil's idol, Falou K's fake idol, or Tristan's necklace would be a great one. I'm trying to think of other ones off the top of my head, but let me get to the other questions for now. Was I worried about the boys being the most physical in challenges? No. I mean, girls are capable of a lot. In most cases, just as much as guys. And I've never done all, I wasn't going to do Steal the Bacon as a guys versus girls challenge. So Shannon could probably Shannon and Sierra. Don't sleep on Sierra. Sierra could probably take most of the guys in a Steal the Bacon or wrestling competition. Did I have a winner pick before the season? I did not. And I didn't do a preseason power rankings, but I did do a lot of predictions after day one. And I'll post what I thought after day one, or the first tribal council. Me and a couple of the crew guys did a fantasy draft, and it was really funny in hindsight. And I still have the footage from that. So I will share my thoughts after the premiere, but I didn't have any thoughts going into the season. I mean, I had thoughts, but I didn't have a locked in winner pick. It's really hard to predict an all-star season, and I didn't want to be kind of caught in the prediction game. I just had a lot going on for the season too. What was my favorite season overall? That's tough. I know there's a lot of debate on which season was the best. Everybody has their pros and cons. I think Outback was the best season. If you take away editing, you take away footage, you take away production value, just being there, I think Outback was the craziest and the most fun, besides All-Stars. All-Stars was my favorite out of the four that I've talked about before. Guts and Glory, in terms of the finished product, is the one that I'm most proud of, just in terms of editing and having footage. Was this my favorite season overall? All-Stars, yeah, absolutely was my favorite season. It was just fun to have them back. Everybody was so passionate about it. It just was a different level. And I hope you guys feel the same way. And do any of the later seasons feature returning players? Yes. There are a couple seasons that will have returning players later on. I hope the new host is fine with me saying that. There are a couple people who returned from my season. So I will say, I think at least two of the players who I mentioned today who are not in the cast are going to be back in a later season. I'll leave that up to the new host to say whenever he feels like it, who is actually in that. But two pretty popular characters will be back who are not in All-Stars, getting their second chance. And there's also some people returning from the later seasons also. When is the premiere? Premiere is April 23rd. I am kind of experimenting with the idea of doing it on the 22nd. I'm just telling you guys that because I'm here. I'm just floating out there. But let's just say it's the 23rd for now. If I bump it up a day early, I don't know if anybody will be super mad, but that's where we stand. I mean, I'll obviously have it ready. So I just have to figure that out with when I can actually release it. Shannon is a beast. I agree. Have you or other Marylanders auditioned for CBS Survivor? I definitely have. I also know a few others have. I know that Martin Holmes Redmond sent in a tape for Falou K at one point. So she didn't apply necessarily, but I think she may have been in the process from that. I don't know. I know a bunch of players have applied, and some have heard back, some have not. If anybody's going to be on the next two seasons, I don't know about it. So And I'm not going to be on the seasons. I didn't actually apply this year, so I'm not sure about that. With some of the bigger names, worried some of the bigger names will be targeted early. There's a lot of big names in the cast, so we're going to lose some big ones early, maybe. We're going to lose some big ones later on, maybe. People are going to be lost the whole season. It's going to be sad. It's going to be happy. It's going to be fun. Enjoy the ride. It's a fun season. Does a woman win this season? I need to know if it's worth watching. You're going to have to decide that for yourself. Good move casting the Soca Trio and Sabrina. I like all those choices, so thanks, Laser Tagger. Pseudo Wizard says 5 exclamation points. Don't know what that was for. Where is Connor, aka the victim of the best blindside in Survivor history? I didn't mention Connor. Connor, I think he initially reached out about playing in, but just maybe never followed up, or maybe he had something that semester too. It could have been someone I considered, but I don't consider him kind of the most engaging personality. Similar reasons that I like Phil as a game player, but not maybe the best camera personality, so I wasn't dying to have him. But yeah, no Connor, sorry. What season is your last season hosting? All Stars is my final one. So All Stars is the final one I'm hosting, final one I'm editing. Maybe I'll help on editing down the line or something, but that's not my stuff. Alan, this one is his last. He was trying the other guy. Siona needs to apply for Survivor. I would love to see Siona on Survivor. She would be awesome. I want to see Falou K on Sequester. Try convincing her. I don't know if she would do that, but you can try. Why didn't I apply this year? Honestly, like my goal this year was to finish editing, to finally get All Stars out, and I just never had it in me to fully make the video and commit to that. So next year, I'm going to hopefully commit to that, make it my goal, and we'll see. I know that you can't get on if you don't apply, so I understand that. What are the tribe colors? Turquoise and orange. I don't have the shirts with me right now, but you can see them in the preview, obviously. If any casting director watched Maryland Outback, Chris L would be a lock for Real Survivor. I think Chris the Comp should be on Real Survivor in a heartbeat, and I honestly don't really know why they haven't cast him. Like he's similar to Chris Noble, but a little bit more self-aware. He's a good-looking guy. He's very big personality, very high energy, very strategic, as we've seen. I'm frankly don't understand how they haven't seen it either. I've helped him with some application videos, and people have said they're pretty good, and he's gotten some feedback. But is there anyone I wasn't planning on casting that blew me away? And that's a good question. You're talking about for Austin. Follow up on your question. If you're talking about I shouldn't talk about who blew me away for All Stars. In terms of the initial seasons, anyone who blew me away. Yeah, casting is one of the things that I feel like I'm pretty good at. There have been people who I was excited about who really disappointed me. For instance, I was really excited about Mikey from season 4. I thought he was a fun personality, huge Survivor fan, high energy, but it just didn't. It never clicked for him in the season, and so that was disappointing. I don't know if there's anyone who I was not excited about who blew me away. I didn't know some people going into it, so I didn't really know Holly from Terrapin Trials, but I really liked her when I got to know her. Sabrina also. Will I completely disappear from the internet after All Stars is over? No, I'll probably be more active. I haven't watched TV or done anything, binged shows besides Survivor and a couple others in years. So I'm excited to start watching things like The Genius, a lot of other shows. I don't know. I've got a lot to watch. I'm excited to have some free time after this all goes through. Who would I say are the opposite of Phil and Connor and are much more engaging in person than they came off on the show? Chris LeCompte is someone I would say for that. He didn't do great in confessionals in Maryland Outback, but he's just always someone who commands a room, and you just can't forget him in real life. Somebody else, I think, who was not engaging on camera, who was actually really engaging in person? I don't know. I think Eric is more engaging than the camera gave him credit for. I find Eric to be a really fun person. I don't know. I have to think more about that question. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Did I consider a twist of just doing a Joe Schmo show with Zandria thinking she was running a season? I think Zandria talked to me about hosting at one point. Zandria is just wild. She used to tell me in Maryland Outback that she couldn't do a challenge at 10 p.m. because she had to be ready for bed by 12:30. And I was like, well, the challenge is going to take an hour. And she's like, yeah, but I need 2 hours to get ready for bed. I was like, what? So Zandria is the one person I cheered when she got out afterwards. The cast knew how much I was dealing with her bullshit. Sorry, Zandria. Nice person, but really a pain in the ass to schedule. How did we go about casting people for the first 4 seasons? So season 1 and season 2, I really just went around talking to people and I handpicked them. And I always say this to for people who are trying to host the season is don't be afraid of recruiting. Don't be afraid of personally recruiting people. It's great to get applications, but the people who apply for applications are not always the same group of people that you can reach out to and convince personally. So somebody like Chris Lecomte, he's not going to just be trolling the internet looking for a random club to join. Like, I just don't see him as being the type of person who does that. But I was on the floor with him, and I reached out to him, talked to him, and I was like, hey, you should try a Maryland thing. He'd heard a little bit about it. He's very competitive. I was like, this is like the game of games. I think you'd really like it. And so I convinced him to play. So, and he wasn't even a fan of Survivor at the time. Now he's a huge fan. People, just because they aren't super fans, doesn't mean they won't be super fans. Doesn't mean they won't get the game. So don't be afraid to recruit people who are competitive and who are interested and who would love the game if they played, but just haven't found it yet. So I did a lot of hand picking of people. Maryland Outback was almost entirely people from my floor. I was an RA, and that cast turned out really well. You don't have to have a range of applications from everywhere. You can just find those people, and casting is something I feel like I really was good at. For Terrapin Trials, it was kind of a mix of getting people to apply and also handpicking people that I knew or had heard about it, reached out to me. Guts and Glory was the first time that I did full applications, reached out to people, people reached out to me. I just posted them online and saw what I got. And I did talk to a few people, like Renee, I met in class. I told Renee he'd be great for it. I knew some other people like Priya and Katie through RA stuff. So, yeah. I hope Chris L delivers tons of shirtless confessionals and also great gameplay. Fair wishes. What was the most rewarding part about getting to film this upcoming season? I think the most rewarding part was just that, you know, more than any other season, these players made this their life. I mean, they did other things. They had clubs and went out to the bars, whatever. But Survivor was always present in everything they did. And I always, as the host, you know, live it like part of my life every year. I have to always be there, always be present. But to have them all buy in and have them all make it such a huge priority and to spend so much time and mental effort thinking about it, I mean, it just was so cool to have us all part of the shared experience. You know, there are things in the season like we're up at 5 a.m. either yelling at each other or going to look for idols, and everybody's running which way and where, you know, across campus late at night. And it just was so crazy. You had to laugh so many times. And I think that's what was so rewarding about it, is that they all felt as much, or if not more, passion than I did about it. Is Rob Sesternino funnier in person? I've only met Rob at a Live Know-It-Alls event, and I feel like he was like very tipsy. So he was very funny, and he was like just so many giggles. But it also might just be, you know, hosting a lot of people. I think he's funny on the podcast too, but I think he lets loose more in person. He's very professional on the podcast. So yeah, I think he's funnier in person. Will Sabrina tell more awkward dildo stories? Sabrina, I don't know if I end up airing this in the premiere, but it's a secret scene. This isn't a spoiler, but you know, she kind of talked about on day one that Terrapin Trials was just very different in terms of the group of people, especially that was on the Rafiki tribe. They were just like very straight edged, you know, kind of like, I wouldn't say nerdier, but just like more intellectual people. And All Stars, the girls and everybody were so social, so out there. A lot of sorority girls, a lot of really active, popular girls. And so I think Sabrina and the dildo thing wouldn't really be a thing in the All-Star season versus the Terrapin Trial. She just stood out so much more then. But I don't know if we're going to get dildo stories. At least there was actually Sabrina, you know, tells some great stories on camera. I probably have them banked up somewhere, but don't know if they'll air. You'll have to pay me for those separately. Any secret cameos from past players not in All-Stars? We give shout-outs to people all the time in the seasons. So you'll just have to find out as they go. I'm not going to tell you everything that happens in the season. This is going to be lit, fire. I agree. How long ago was this filmed? This was filmed from the end of August through December, or I guess the end of November 2015. So almost 3 years ago, which is crazy. Is Sherry the only international player who applied? Sherry reached out to me a year before the casting for Guts and Glory even started. And so I was really excited to have her be part of it. She had told me about how she'd run her own seasons. As far as when I was running it, she was the only international player, like international student who was on like a, you know, visiting from another country who had applied, which was really exciting for me. If Warriors were available, would I have cast them? I talked about this earlier. If like 3 or 4 of them were available, I would have cast them. I think that the season 3 winner, I think that, he wasn't the most popular person during a season, but he's actually, you know what? That's a good answer to the question of who's more engaging in person. Season 3's winner, very engaging in person, really fun personality. Loved seeing them at the bars or whatever. Just like very funny. Just didn't get to show that in their season. So busy and caught up with other things, but they're a fun personality. So I would have loved to see them play again. Season 4's winner would have been a lock to come back if that person wanted to play. And I would have taken one of the other two also. Priya was pushed. Do I watch every single video contestants send to you while filming strategy sessions? Yeah. That's why editing takes so long, because I go through every second of footage. I don't leave a stone unturned. I just, it's my last season. I wanted to cover everything, and I had a lot of footage this season. Best quote from Outback: "Are you all playing Survivor? That's effing cool, man." Yeah, I think that was the guy. Maybe that was during a challenge, but there was a guy at Tribal who showed up every time for the first 4 tribals when the Waka tribe kept losing. This guy walked by every time, and they were on different nights. It wasn't like the same night every week. It was crazy. And every time he'd be like, "Didn't I see you guys here last time?" And it became like a running joke that they just kept losing. And he was like, "Man, y'all suck." So that guy was funny. Was I hesitant to cast Crowder after the hate he got towards the end of the season? I didn't love the way it ended with Crowder, with kind of the language that was used at that tribal. But, he was pretty tipsy at that tribal. Him and Nicole are very close. Him and Steve and Chris are good. And that wasn't something that like stayed ugly after it ended. So I wasn't worried about that. Ryan can get definitely aggressive sometimes, a little bit belligerent, but Ryan wasn't at the top of my list, but he was somebody who was so passionate about coming back that it was definitely worth including him, I think. Will it be more alcohol-induced drama like from Outback for All-Stars? I don't like when alcohol becomes the driving point of a season, but it's fine when it's part of the college life. So I will say that there are some tribals that are impacted by being a little bit of alcohol. There are maybe some fights and stuff that happen when people were drunk. Not even all of them will get shown. There was so much that I just was not able to show this season. But alcohol, plays a role in people's lives, and it makes them do silly things and things they wouldn't normally do. But I don't think it ever became like a sticking point in the season. Maybe early on there's one storyline that features alcohol and how that affects the rest of the tribe. But I think it can add a little bit, and it did add a little bit to the season, but it's not a dominant storyline, which is fine by me. When I say I recruited random people on campus, what attracted you to them? Any story an individual recruit made that made you want that person to play? So, there's I used to be part of the student judiciary on campus, and there was a guy who was in a case that I was running and clearly had committed all the crimes he was being charged with. And just was lying his ass off for hours, so committed to these lies. And I could not believe it. It was just crazy to me. And I was like, damn, like if I had no morals, I would go up to this guy after the case ended and be like, "Will you play in my Survivor game?" And I almost did it, but I ultimately decided not to. I think that was when I was thinking about running Guts and Glory. I was thinking about this, but ultimately didn't do it. Is there a single story that people gave me that made me cast them? I just remember interviewing Brian and just laughing so hard at everything he said, and I was like, I gotta have this guy on. And I'd actually done all the casting for Guts and Glory and was like, I need somebody kind of goofy, kind of silly, who's a comedic relief kind of guy. I was actually thinking of somebody like Ryan from Maryland Outback. And that's how I ended up just reaching out to Brian and finding him. But I more felt people out in terms of their personality. It wasn't like random meetings on the street. Someone like Renee was just a big presence in class, like a really built, good-looking guy who had a really interesting backstory. When he started telling me his story about his weightlifting and how that changed his life, I thought that was interesting, and just somebody that I thought would be perfect to have in the show. So people like that swayed me into casting them and also doing Guts and Glory in later seasons in the first place. How many players stayed involved in production crew after they played the first time? So season 1, I didn't really have a lot of involvement after. Shubal helped me a little bit in season 2, but not much. Nick from season 1 also helped me a bit. Maryland Outback, I got some loyal crew. So Alex from Maryland Outback was a crew member throughout the rest of the seasons. Chris LeCompte and Steve became really helpful on the crew, very vital for me as I went through. Also gave Chris LeCompte the opportunity to meet a lot of people. So everybody in the season knows Chris LeCompte, at least somewhat. Victoria hopped on the crew after Terrapin Trials, which was helpful to me. Holly kind of like showed up a little bit to some challenges. Marissa would pop in at times. People stayed involved somewhat. But Chris LeCompte, Steve, Alex, Victoria were kind of my main four that stuck around for crew. Do I think it's better to stay humble in a final tribal council or completely stick your neck out? It's a tough call. I think that it depends on who you are and what the state of things are. So for Katie, a lot of people said that Katie maybe been too aggressive at her final tribal in Guts and Glory. Sorry if that's a spoiler. Too late by now. But, I think Katie had to prove herself. She had to separate herself, so she had to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit cockier, because she had to separate herself from this group of three that they just didn't like. If you're somebody who, like, if Alex had made the final tribal, I think that he could have been humble and gotten away with it. People already had the preconceived notions. So if you're the front runner, stay humble. If you're not the front runner, then you got to step up a little bit. I think that's the best way to phrase it. Falou K, for instance, the final tribal. I know, people talk about racism, sexism. I don't really think that was totally it. This final tribal was so long and just such a mess that I think that it was reasons outside of that. But I think if she had stayed a little bit more humble, but also been more confident and realistic about her gameplay and how well she actually did, I think she would have won. They recruited the guy. I used to reach out to people who walked by, but it never really turned out to much. After hosting so many seasons of College Survivor, what's your advice for someone considering playing at a different university? My advice to players who are going to play is always talk to people. Don't think that you can wait until your tribe loses or until you're going to go to tribal or until a swap or whatever, or even till the second challenge. You better on that first day be going to talk to people. I'm trying to think. I don't think any player who has won my seasons did not make connections early on. You absolutely have to reach out to people and talk to players. Timster is LOLing, but maybe the question. You have to reach out and talk to people. That's my number one advice over everything. So if you're going to play that, do that. And number two is just know that it can end at any time. So players a lot of times play timid in their first season. They're not sure what the kind of realm of possibilities there are, but you can lie about anything. You can make up anything, especially with things behind closed doors. You can do so much in this college game. So don't let those opportunities go unturned. At least go out knowing that you tried. Hi, 10-gauge legend. Do any of your players ever remind you of 10-gauge players? I don't have a good enough recollection of people from there. That was a fun site when I was on it. I don't have a really strong recognition. I think online games and in-person games are just so different. So I hate to dodge that question, but I don't think I can give you an answer without sitting here for half an hour. Who's my biggest casting regret? Charlie. Charlie's not my biggest casting regret at all. I actually think Charlie was another person. I had never met him before the season started. I just had briefly exchanged messages with him. He was recommended to me. Charlie, I think was a great first boot. He's a perfect thing that you want from a first boot. Kind of obnoxious, gave some really funny confessionals, but also confessionals that made you not like him. Was very cocky about himself and just didn't fit in with the tribe, but also try to do things, didn't just sit back and do nothing. I think Charlie was perfect for that season as a first boot, and I love that premiere. My biggest casting regret is probably got to be someone like Carla, but it was Maryland Outback, and I'm just trying to fill spots. So in terms of people that I really interviewed and vetted and picked, Elise, definitely disappointment for me. Very sweet girl. I know she has some fans out there. Great swimmer. Robbed too soon, but she just really never gave it anything. So that was disappointment for me. And Mikey also I mentioned for that season, just never reached the potential I thought he had. Best, funniest incident from the first couple seasons that didn't make air. Well, the Plata Island was a fun season, and I think there's some good stuff on the wiki about some of the things that happened there, but I'm not sure if it all happened. Season 1 had some great moments. One of the funniest things was at Final 5, Schubel, who was there, he had 2 idols and he'd won immunity. And he was going to try to save 2 other people to make a final 3. But one of the girls really wanted to quit. Like she just did not want to be there anymore. It was season 1, whatever. She begged him to let him go out. So he ended up playing his idols for different people, letting her go. And then Danny, who probably should have won that season, played an incredible game. Would have loved to have him back for Crescent Warrior All Stars, but he, kind of like a bit of a Boston Rob, but not like in like the unlikable, restrict everybody sense, but just like very big presence, controlled a lot of alliances, played a really good game. He went up and after Schubel played his idols, he said, Austin, I'd like to use my blocker idol, and he gave me this necklace. And Schubel like may have peed his pants, like his jaw dropped. He like got up and was like, what is the blocker idol? And Danny was like, yeah, the idol lets me take away one of the immunities from somebody else. So I'm going to take Schubel's immunity necklace away. And so Schubel's freaking out, and I start going into it. I'm like, in the event that a blocker idol is played, that immunity necklace from that person will no longer count. Votes for that person are now valid. And Schubel's losing his shit. And he's like, no, that's not fair. That's not fair. And I'm like, there is no blocker idol. Toss to the side. And there were like 10 people there watching, and everybody just burst out laughing. So poor Schubel. I'm really excited to have – I didn't talk much about Schubel, but huge character in season 1, huge personality, one of my good friends in life, and should be fun to have him on All Stars. From the premiere, you'll see he's a big character. Let's see. Other seasons from Maryland Outback, I can't remember a really funny one off the top of my head, but that whole night that Chris Thomas and Chris Comp had their little cheese thing, I had to like deal with them till like 7 a.m. They were just spraying cheese on each other, and there's a whole extended segment of them talking and saying some awful, awful stuff about other people. So that was something. Let's see, other questions. And the fake idol play from season 1 was also really awesome. That was a kind of iconic Schubel move. He planted this fake idol in the gym, led someone to go find it. That person got voted out with it, playing it. They lost by 1 vote. Actually, was his ally, so it might not even been the best move, but it's just really compelling. Best, funniest, or I don't know if you already mentioned this. Who are people that you consider for the season but ended up cutting? Holly, like I said, from Maryland Outback was in the cast and then ended up dropping. Falou K, obviously somebody who I considered and almost was on there, but didn't work out. If you want to hear more, just go back to the beginning of the show. Can't believe there's still 32 of you guys here. I hope you guys are not bored and are enjoying this at all, this insight. I hope it's not crazy. Maybe you just left the screen on. I'll wrap this up pretty soon. I got to go and do other things and watch the draft of the premiere, actually, is what I'm going to do. But thank you guys for coming out for this and tuning in. Other questions? Feel free to fire off a few more questions. I'm still salty I didn't win the Survive Maryland shirt. I have a few shirts left, so there may be some other opportunities to win a shirt. Don't give up just yet, Jack. Was King Tyreek a good character? I love Tyreek, fun personality, one of my good friends from college. Also, not a great character because he just wasn't really involved in the game. He kind of was floating with his alliance, which was led by Danny and Alex that season. Alex, the guy who won. Tyreek actually didn't even show up for the Final Four challenge, which is when Schubel got out. Schubel and Danny made this pact about taking each other to the end since they were all there. They were doing the light pole challenge together. They decided to drop at the same time because they didn't want to fight out for who won. Danny actually won the tiebreaker challenge. Then they ended up backstabbing Schubel at the Final Four and taking Tyreek. And the crazy thing is Tyreek almost won. The jury was pretty bitter. Very bitter at Danny and a little bit bitter at Alex. So Tyreek, that was the first tie vote in Survivor history, at least that I've seen. Do I think I'll ever start a new series at Survivor to host? I mean, I'm not at college anymore. I don't have that luxury, and I really like the long form game. I would consider hosting a short form game at some point. Maybe bringing together college Survivor players from different seasons or fan-made games. I'd love to have kind of like an all-star season of that. I don't know if it's ever been done in that kind of sense. You kind of see the same players playing sometimes, but not people who are outside of that realm. Maybe someday. I don't know. I'm not there yet. Let me get through this season before I ever think about doing another thing. No editing. Done with that for a bit. Timster, feel free to ask as many questions as you want. It's 3. Oh, you guys are so nice. This has been a lot more fun than I thought. It was much more fun than just editing and putting it out there too. So thank you guys for tuning in for this. Thanks Austin as well. You guys know I'll say this right now. Sorry, before I get to that. I saw there was a question about which season I would have done the best in. I think I would have done really well in. That's a good question. La Plata Island, I knew too many people; they would have just voted me out right away. There is actually we had like a Survivor Flip Cup game and a couple parties, and I made it pretty far in that. But I think I could have done pretty well in most of the seasons. I think Guts and Glory, I think I would have thrived in. I think I knew how to. I knew those people the best, not in terms of personally knowing them, but I understood why they were playing and what they were about. And I think that I could have. It wasn't so strategic of a season that I would have been outplayed, so I think I would have been able to do well there. Would I ever consider playing with the new person hosting? So we actually, I remember I was on a spring break trip with Steve, Chris Lecomte. That's where you see the shirtless confessionals with Renee on the beach. A bunch of people that I knew were on a spring break trip. People from across the seasons were there. It wasn't Survivor related, but people just knew each other. And Steve was kind of drunk, and he was like, "Dude, I'll host the season, and you can play. Like, I want you to play. I'll do that for you. I'll host." And we like actually talked about it for a bit. I thought about a twist where I come in a few rounds in. I really considered it. I thought it'd be really fun, and I kind of wanted to play a bit, but ultimately it just was never going to work out. So you can't really go from host to player. It's really tough. I don't think Jeff Probst could do it on the real show. It would just be too gimmicky, and it would just, I think, would feel awkward. Especially if they make a deep run, it's fun. If they go out early, it's really unfortunate. And then there's the awkward thing of are they in crew? It just wasn't going to do it. Duke fan. Oh, well, I'm sorry they lost, except that I'm actually not sorry at all. That was a great game, though. How long into All-Stars was it released when I realized it was not going to be the last season? I got reached out to by Anders, who's the next host. He messaged me probably a month into All-Stars or so, because I think he started showing up around episode 5 or 6 to help out, and which was really helpful because I was really low on crew. And he was like, "Hey, I want to play." And I was like, "Well, that's not possible because I'm graduating." And he was like, "All right, well then I want to host." And I was like, "All right, well this is like not easy. You can't just jump in and host right away. Like it's tough." And he was like, "No, I want to host." And he was very serious about it. And so I brought him on. He's on crew. He sees kind of the goings on a little bit, and I tried to trade him up. And it probably was about a month after I was like, "If you're committed to this, I'm not going to stop you from doing it. I'd rather it stay than fall apart." So probably about halfway through All-Stars, we figured out that we were going to have another season. There's a great, I'll post this probably when we get to it, but me, Alex from season 2, and Anders, we did a crew Dizzy Bat challenge when we did Dizzy Bat in the season. Spoiler, Dizzy Bat's in the season. I love Dizzy Bat. And I won, well, that was a spoiler. Shit, I won the challenge. Well, you'll see it anyway. Sorry for people who are here. Yes, Anders has started editing, but Anders actually puked after the Dizzy Bat challenge. And at that point, I was like, all right, he's puked. He's done. He's given his guts for this. He's ready to host. So that's when I knew. All right, any more questions? I'm going to wrap up in the next 5 minutes or so probably, but feel free to ask other questions, any seasons or anything coming up. We're a little under a month away from the premiere. Still 30 of you here. You guys are the best. I love you guys. While I'm waiting to see if there are any more questions, I just want to say, I know I say this all the time, but it really means a lot to me when you guys, post your comments, post around the internet, tell people about it. It's a lot of work to do this. Like you guys know now, I've been working on this season for 3 years between casting, filming, and editing. And the editing process really for almost 2 years itself. So, I've never done a Patreon thing. I've never tried to charge people for this. I've never tried to make money off of it. It's been a labor of love. It's been a lot of time. It's strained my relationships with my family a little bit when I bother them because I'm like, I got to edit, can't do anything else. It takes up most of my free time, my hobbies. So I don't say that to make you feel bad. I say that to mean that it means so much when you guys actually do care about it and show up enough to be in a live Q&A for an hour with me. Like it really does mean a lot. And it especially means a lot to me when you guys tell other people like, hey, this is actually a really good show. Hey, this is worth watching, because anybody can say that, but people do not give it a shot until they hear about it from someone they know. Or hear about it on Reddit, see people liking it. So it's been really rewarding, especially once Guts and Glory started airing, to see how big it grew, how much people cared. And for All Stars is going to be so worth committing every week, having the discussions, watching it live. And so I really encourage you guys to also tell people catch up now. Now is the chance to catch up and watch it, because the more people that watch it at the time, it's going to be a lot of fun to discuss. So I'll answer a few more questions, then I'll wrap up. What is your favorite blindside in Survivor Maryland history? Well, I don't want to ruin the tribal rankings poll, but if I had to cast a vote, number one for me would be the Connor blindside. I think it's pretty clear as number one. It's just this amazing combination of a bunch of moves, one side making so many moves to flip the game on Chris LeCompte and Steve, who had a lot of power. Siona giving this empowering speech. They had just had this whole unity moment as a tribe at the camp out. And then they fractured in these alliances. They flipped Chandler and Connor, who had been these swingwits forever, but had loved working with the guys. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Chris LeCompte lies about his dog, flips Senti with. I didn't even know. I didn't know this was happening. It was like a true blindside to me in the moment. When I went and read the votes, I was like, this cannot be right. Somebody must have put in a vote wrong. Just such an epic blindside that it's like hard to top in general. So many combinations of things. People, even the Chandler and Phil and Connor, like hiding in the room from Chris LeCompte, like that was so great about Maryland Outback. It was the idea that they were all really living in the same dorm for the most part, and they were all together running into each other. They're running out the other door, the back door of the building, to avoid and not have to talk about it. I mean, just great stuff. My number two would probably be the Cool Victoria, the Holly blindside, because it was such a buildup of these storylines. This slow burn in Terrapin Trials. If you didn't notice this, the pre-song in Terrapin Trials is Burn by Ellie Goulding. And the whole season is just this steady kind of embers rising up. And it just keeps getting a little bit more intense every time. And then it just culminates in this crazy, huge blindside with Victoria flipping the game, Falou K falling, off the rails after it. Just that is also, I think, the number two. Those are the top two for me. And I was really proud of how I was able to figure out the editing, especially for leading up to the Holly blindside. I have a call. I'm going to ignore that. Survivor Maryland Know-It-Alls. If anyone's going to be in Boston for the live Know-It-Alls that RHAP is doing, I think we're planning to have maybe, at least we've been talking about it, but I don't know how willing anyone is to do it. We've been talking about doing a live watch of the premiere on the Tuesday. That's when a lot of us will be getting to Boston that day. I think some people from the community will be there. Podcast community. Adam Klein might be there. I think he's flying into there. If you want to come by, reach out to me. If you're going to be in Boston, let me know. And I would love to have a lot of people together to watch the premiere. If you can stand not watching it the first night, or if you want to watch it again or whatever. But I also, I said at the top of the show that if you are interested in being part of a video this season to talk about the season, to give your thoughts, then reach out to me. Send me a message. I have people that have reached out to me since last week who want to be part of videos, and I want to incorporate you guys. I want to get the fans, FaceTime on the screen. I love to hear the discussion. So I have some ideas about maybe bringing in people to discuss the episodes after they happen, or maybe another preseason prediction podcast or show. I don't know. But if you're interested, reach out to me and we can do something like that. I can't do my own know-it-alls because I can't predict the season when I know what happens. When is the next live show? Maybe I'll do. I don't think I'll do another Q&A for the format and stuff. But maybe I should just talk about that if I don't feel like editing it. I'll probably put together a day one format video in the next 2 weeks or so. So that'll be the next video that we have, and then I'll do a live thing with those guests, which is going to be kind of like a preseason prediction and fantasy draft show with some really fun guests. That'll be a week or two before the season. Thanks so much for starting the college franchise. No problem. It's been really fun to see the college franchise grow. And if anyone's here, shout out to, Survivor Ohio State, Survivor Michigan, Survivor YSU, Survivor Boston. So, I mean, I don't want to leave people out. There's so many great college Survivor games. so many great fan-made Survivor games. Shout out to Jack, Pacific Northwest, who's in this chat. A lot of really fun stuff that I've seen. And this really is the golden age of fan-made Survivors. I mean, we were on Mashable yesterday, and they're so much better than they were when I started watching. There were some good ones like Survivor Bush and whatever, but there were some crap homemade Survivor games. Still are some rough homemade Survivor games, but also some really good ones. So a lot of fun content for people to watch. I hope more people continue to give it a shot and watch shows like Survivor Maryland. But whether it's about watching on YouTube or not, I love the college Survivor games. Even if they're not filmed, they're just amazing clubs to be on a college campus. And I think every big campus should have one. Even small campuses has succeeded. Was there a moment filming one of the seasons when I knew just how amazing it was going to turn out to be? The whole Outback post-merge was just such a wild ride. Same with the whole middle of Guts and Glory. I always was so amazed with how lucky I was when these seasons were happening. Really, the only time that I was like, I wish I could have rigged it was like Sherry getting voted out in Guts and Glory. Besides that, I just kept being so amazed by how lucky I was to see these storylines play out, to have the outcomes that were so interesting, however they worked out. When the Holly blindside happened in Terrapin Trials, you can kind of see me smiling in the background. So there were so many moments when I knew this would look great and this would turn out great. Did I pay for all the props used in challenges? Yeah, I put a lot out of pocket for these shows. I did get some grants later on in my college career from the school that helped out, and I did charge a little bit of a fee for players to play that helped out. But I spent some money on this, but it was something I was willing to do. Nothing was super high budget. If you can obviously tell that. Okay, 1 hour 15 minutes. I should really wrap up. Does the drama make me uncomfortable? Do I prefer the players not going to sit in game? No. One thing I do have an issue with in the last few seasons of CBS Survivor is that they're just too nice to each other. Like, I want people to be bitter. I want people to be angry. I want people to fight with each other. I don't want to have all the time the drama like the final 3 challenge of Survivor Terrapin Trials. That was ugly. I don't like that. But I do like drama when it's part of the game and people are just passionate about it. I'm fine with juries being a little bit bitter. I'm fine with those fights at Tribal. I didn't hate the Soca Trio for being bitter at Tribal Council for losing. I like that people care. I like that they're putting a lot of passion into it, and it didn't make me uncomfortable for the most part. Maybe a couple times it crossed a little bit of a line, but I love that. I think that Survivor needs to have more of that. I would reach out to Taryn from RHAP. I don't think Taryn watches Survivor Maryland. I do know Taryn. Taryn's awesome. But I don't know if he wants to interview me, or I don't think he's seen Survivor Maryland. So you guys can tell him to watch it if that's what you want. Feel free to reach out to these people. I only got people like Redmond and Diamond Collin and stuff. They only started watching it because I reached out to them. They just would have known about it. So, all right. I think on that note, any spoilers on who the guest will be? Steve asks. I'm not going to share that yet. You could probably guess a lot of them. The guest, you guys can put some guesses on who notable from Survivor community has watched Survivor Maryland. And it's pool comes from that list, so should be really fun to do that. I'm going to wrap up. It's been almost an hour and 20 minutes. I'm sorry for taking up so much of your time. I thank you guys all for watching. If for some reason you turned in after the live Q&A, I hope you learned something too. Thank you guys for being amazing fans. Thank you guys for spreading the word, for caring, and for making it worth my time. As I said, coming up, we'll have on Monday, I will post the cast bios for the season, or I shouldn't call them cast bios. They're the interview questions, the application questions that the cast answered. So their mindset on what did you learn from last time? What will you do this time? Who do you want to play with? Who do you not? They didn't know the cast yet. So I'll post blurbs from that. They should be a fun read. In a couple weeks, I'll post a video about the day 1 format, what the twists are, what my take on idols is, what the heck is this whole partner twist, and what are we going to see on the first day. Those will be fun to talk about, and some of the twists that you'll see this season will be in that. And otherwise, I'll just be plugging away, putting in the music for the episodes. So just like I said, done with the premiere tonight. Thank you guys for asking questions all night. And without blabbering anymore, love you all. Love you, Bays. And I will see you guys soon and especially soon for All Stars. I can't freaking wait. So talk to you guys soon. Thanks again.